Yeah, sure. So, hi guys, thank you for having me. I'm a lifelong learner, passionate about education, careers, technology, and entrepreneurship. I work at LeWagon, which is immersive training company where we organize bootcamps worldwide to help people find jobs in tech. And I'm based in a beautiful island of Cyprus, where I finally settled recently after living in a lot of different places before that.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, a good friend of mine just moved to Cyprus. It seems like the place to be at the
Yeah,
moment.
it is.
I think it's too hot for me. I'm more of a wet weather guy.
Yeah. I mean, you can always get away to Europe to cool down, but
Yeah.
I'm loving
Right.
it so far.
Sold.
So it's October now. How's the temperature there?
Like, I would say between 26 to 30 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Oh dear.
All right. That's
Yeah.
Okay, so sadly, the topic of the conversation today isn't going to be hot weather destinations. We're going to talk about tech careers and the job market. So for graduates about to begin their journey into their tech career. So maybe you could sort of start us off and give us a bit of an overview of the current state of the job market and what people might be expecting as they start their journey.
Yeah. So I would say right now it's probably one of the most challenging time to look for a job in tech. Like that's the reality. So it does take a little bit longer than it used to some time ago. Maybe you need to prepare more for an interview to stand out, or maybe you need to send more applications to be picked up among the sea of applicants. But at the same time, it's definitely the most exciting time to break into tech. Maybe even since the internet was invented, because there's so much going on, and in a very good way.
So what do you think makes it the most exciting time to break in?
Yeah. So I would say definitely the wealth of opportunities. I feel like before the world was like, these are tech people and these are non-tech people. And now it kind of blends. So there is so much more in tech than just being a developer or data analyst. There are so many roles around product, a lot of more services and client customer oriented opportunities. So depending on what you're interested in, what your ambitions are, and what skills you have, you can definitely find a place for yourself in tech. So I think this is very interesting. As I mentioned, there is a lot of competition, which means that there's a lot of talent and ambition, which I think makes work very, very exciting. A lot of new companies, a lot of ideas, of course, like leveraging Gen AI, which is still relatively a new thing, and merged with different sectors and products or services, creates like infinite pool of whole new companies that can be potentially built and that one can grow. So this is definitely great. The world has gone remote to some extent, so that definitely opens up a lot of opportunities for people who maybe were previously didn't have access to those opportunities because they were based in a place where they didn't have huge tech companies. I feel like also right now it's just right amount of capital from VC funds. So it's not like that millions and millions are being poured into startups, but at the same time, this capital is available. So this, of course, also matters. So yeah, I feel like it's a good time to switch careers and go for it. And as I said, especially if you're not like 100% sure that you want to spend your whole day coding, there is, a lot of plan B, C, D that you can consider.
Yeah, that's really well said. There's so much more. As time goes on, obviously there's more and more people in tech, so you could argue maybe there's more competition, but there's so many more emerging spaces to work in and still be in that space. I think that that was very well put. There's plans C's and D's and E's and F's now. If you don't want to,
Well, I mean,
be
that's yours and my plans, Dan. I don't know how I feel about being a plan C and a D.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, that's changed very fast. I remember when I learned to code, very quickly realized like, do I want to do this all day? I like what it allows me to do, but do I just want to sit and code tickets all the time? And some people are great at that, and some people have a lot of passion for it. I just didn't, and it just turns out there's lots of other places I can still be adjacent to. So,
Yeah, totally.
So you touched on AI, Gen AI, a minute ago. Are there any new emerging skills that you think bootcamp students should be learning? I maybe put words in your mouth then by prompting you with the AI thing, but is that the big area, or is there other ones as well?
Yeah, I would probably say AI, even if you wouldn't prompted me so. But
Yeah.
I would say, okay, so today it's AI. Maybe in 5 years it will be something different that we're not thinking of right now. So maybe it's a little bit of a vague answer, but I would say learn how to spot what's relevant and be able and have courage to embrace it relatively fast. Because then whatever like comes next, you will be ready. And I think Gen AI is kind of a good way to learn that skill, so that when there is something new in the next couple of years, like you can maybe use the same method to embrace something new. I don't think I wouldn't like dare to say like name anything specific. I don't think apart from Gen AI, like there's anything that emerges clearly like the next big thing that I would recommend to go for.
Okay. Yeah, it's good advice, isn't it? I think it's like being able to sort of pivot and like gladly learn something new, even if it might be just a flavor of the week that you might use for a couple of years, and then you might have to jump on something else. That you say, it's that lifelong learning skill, so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and boot camps in many ways give you that kind of skill, right? How to learn quickly, how to learn new things. But apart from all the tech skills, like just hard tech skills, what kind of soft skills do you think new people might need now coming into this world with remote being so much more prevalent?
If I had to say one thing, I would say it's communication. And it's not, only how we think typically about communication, talking to one another. It's also, like you mentioned right now, remote work matters a lot. So are you able to maybe write a Slack message that your colleague that is based in a different time zone will read in 10 hours, and maybe you have different native languages? Will he be able to pick up on the message that you left him or her and continue working in their time zone? So when you start working again next day, you can start from there. So I would say this like asynchronous communication is maybe something that we haven't been really taught in school, or we haven't practiced a lot in the past. Now it matters a lot. But also, I would say even communicating with yourself. So like if you're a developer, that making, all the comments to your code will matter to another person that will work on the same thing, but also for your future self, right? Will you be able to understand what you have developed right there? So I would say communication, not only verbal, but also written, not only in the real time, but also asynchronous. It would be like the most important soft skill. Yeah. But as I always say to the people I coach, like, go with the soft skill that you already have. So like, be aware of the soft skill that you do possess and that makes you stand out, because maybe there is something like about you that you don't realize that makes you great. And like exploring, okay, what am I good at, can help you a lot, because next time when there's a project, you will be able to say, oh, I feel like I would be a good person to work on this, on that, right? And I think also bootcamp is a good way to do that, because students work on a group project, and in that time they're able to maybe assess a little bit like, okay, what soft skills do I have, and also in career services that we have at LeWagon, we put a lot of emphasis on helping people explore that.
Nice. And if
I like
you
that you said in there about like making sure people can understand your code, like empathy for people who don't understand what you've developed. Comments
Yes,
everywhere.
totally. Yeah. And I think this is something that in some ways make career switchers good coders and like good in tech, because they probably remember the time when they were totally blue and knew nothing about coding, right? Because maybe it was just a year or two ago. So they show a lot of empathy to clients, to product manager or salespeople in their company. So and this really does matter.
I'll tell you what as well, for a deep dive into asynchronous communication, listeners can just track back one episode. As Jacob's episode last week was very much focused on that, wasn't it? Is how to do that well. So
yeah, we've been talking a lot on the podcast lately about like remote setups and how if you've been working in an in-person industry and then you come into this remote, like how different that is. Yeah, and I think that is good advice. Learning how to communicate is part of it, but trying to realize how other people from a different time zone will perceive it is really important. Like if I leave a comment at what is essentially 1 a.m. for them, maybe there's an extra layer of thought that goes into your communication. So yeah.
I've got a question for both of you actually. Do you think that prompt writing into an AI, would you say that's a hard skill or a soft skill?
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll let you take it, Marta.
Can I say both?
Oh, diplomatic answer.
Yeah, there is some hard component to it, right? Like there is a lot of people who figure it out to some extent and have a lot of good practices to share then that you can study from, and so in that way it is hard skill. But at the end of the day, it's so broad, like you have no idea what you will be prompting 6 months from now, so you need to be able to adjust to so many contexts, and that in that sense you need to have a lot of intuition, which makes it quite soft. Yeah, what do you think?
I was going to say it depends what you're prompting. So if I'm typing, that's one type. But when I talk to GPT a lot, I put it on the voice when I go for runs or for walks, or walks are easier. And then I talk through problems and I ask it, don't only respond with okay, try not to answer me until I'm finished. And that is a soft skill because I try it. You're just talking to yourself, obviously, but I'm still talking through a problem. But when you're hard writing a question, that feels like a hard skill because you know how to phrase a prompt. So it's like a hard wired, if I say things like this, try to avoid doing this. When you get to this point, the task is done. That is a prompt. And that feels more of a hard skill.
I guess when you're writing, I was actually doing a bit of coding at the weekend, and I was asking it some questions about like, just to sort of help you through, and then you realise that the coding specific things have to be very, very like laser focused. You can't just say like, I'm building a page. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
So like you have to give it the very specific words for the very specific things, and then it can help you. So I feel that's like a very hard element of it. But then, as you say, if you're kind of just like talking through a topic, then soft. So yeah. Interesting.
Have either of you tried Cursor yet? Have you tried developing with Cursor?
No.
Not yet.
It's like a fork of VS Code, but it has like AI in it. So you can literally say, make me a front end that looks like this, and then make me a back end. And then the magic is like connect those two services and it will do that for you.
Wow.
You'll like it a lot, Tim. I think especially if you understand, what it's doing, you're not just blindly following its code, then you can use it to make really powerful things very, very quick. It's definitely the next step.
Well, maybe that's something that what you just touched on there, Dan, is something we can move on to. So the common challenges that junior developers might face, and especially on the job hunt. So what are the biggest challenges that tech job seekers are facing today, and how would you suggest they overcome them?
So what I can tell you definitely is that there's a lot of competition out there, and it's difficult to stand out as a junior. So even, touching on what Dan just said, like you can basically get Cursor to do basic stuff for you. So you as a junior, you really need to explain how you add more value that tool that they can like literally subscribe to, maybe instead of hiring you. So you need to be able to show that you are very, interested in growing, into making it your long-term career, that you're passionate about not only coding, but coding for them and working on that product. So I would say like candidates in general, like they need to do more to be able to prove that that the company should hire them. There is actually fewer job opportunities out there than there were 2 years ago. A lot of companies went for freelancers because they wanted more flexibility in their hiring, but also because there is a lot of competition. What companies are doing is they try to avoid recruitment process altogether if they can. So what do I mean by that is, the other day I was talking to one of our hiring partners, and they said that they got 17,000 applications for their graduate program. And, it's actually for the talent acquisition teams is a nightmare, because like, how do you go through that volume, right? So I was talking to them, okay, so what they can do instead to avoid that traditional recruitment process when people send them their CV, is there any other way? So if they can, they would maybe ask in the team, guys, do you know anyone who would be a fit for that? Or maybe they would like partner with a bootcamp, right? So or search on a talent platform to find curated list of potential candidates. So why is it a challenge for candidates? Like, because they have to do more to prove that they are a good candidate, but also because it's very difficult to do if you don't have like access to some community or maybe some connections in tech that you can get referred by, or that can help you curate your application. So I would say what happened is it's very difficult to find a job if you're alone in this, and if you don't have like people already in that industry to rely on.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like maybe it's switchers are a little bit of a disadvantage, but this is what makes bootcamps relevant, because basically by joining a bootcamp, you suddenly have access to, in case of LeWagon, 26,000 of our alumni who already do work in tech, right? And they do have jobs there, and their teams are hiring. So there is so many people you can potentially reach out to.
How do you help people switching from non-tech coming into into
So actually this is an interesting question for me, because like for us, switchers are the default. Like most of our students are from non-tech sectors, so our whole career services are kind of adjusted to that context. And for example, we have what we call CV checklist, which is list of steps that you need to take to make your CV look good, and it's written in a way that is relevant for people who do not have experience in tech. It doesn't mean that our career services are not relevant for experienced people. We do have like other interesting stuff that they can do, but we basically designed what we call our job seeker program, which is like a structured step-by-step journey that you take, which tells you, what you should do to find a job. But I would say the biggest value definitely comes from the fact that suddenly you have so many people that you can potentially talk to. So even if you did the bootcamp remotely with people from a lot of different countries, and maybe you haven't met anyone in person, it doesn't matter, because you can search on LinkedIn, I'm looking for people who graduated from LeWagon, who are developers and are based in Zurich or Dublin, right? and you have a list of 100 or 200 people who match that profile, and you can talk to them, see where they're working. And that access, like having someone that can check your CV, that can prepare for interview with you, do a project with you, maybe like practice skills with you, or maybe like keep you motivated when it gets hard. Like for me, this is the biggest value that a job seeker gets. Like again, like I feel like these days, for people from completely different background without any like way in, it's quite tricky to break into that industry, and bootcamp kind of solves that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's well, you might know better than I do, but I feel it's still an overlooked part of the whole bootcamp experience is the fact that you obviously are learning and you get the skill at the end of it, but then there's just it's such a huge resource, isn't it? All those people that have come before you and they know your pain and they've gone through it themselves, and I think once you just break the seal of reaching out and just being active in that community, then it's just such a goldmine.
The network is incredible, yeah.
Talking of which, is there any success stories of students that you can share that have overcome those kind of initial challenges, or reached that goal of a dream job?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. So like something that I say at every workshop or one-to-one coaching session I tell people, like, when you find a job, please send me a message, because then every morning I open my laptop and I have like a couple of very happy messages like, oh, I just signed a contract,
nice.
or I'm starting on Monday, which makes my job fun. And I feel like this is why I love it so much. So there is a lot of like success stories, but I think something that like really like stayed with me, and I think about it a lot, it was the case of this girl. She was like complete switcher. Like she didn't have any corporate job or even office job. She was working in restaurants and bars, and she started coding even before the bootcamp. She was like learning a little bit by herself. She did web development and she did very well in the bootcamp, and then she graduated. And what she did is she went to a tech company which was in her town and just asked, hey, do you have any jobs? Because this is how you get a job when you work in a restaurant. Like you would go to a restaurant and ask, like, are you guys hiring? And she thought that this is how it works for every job. And they were actually quite stunned, but like they gave her some assignments. She did very well, and she found a job, within a week. And then she was telling me about it, and she was like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, why you didn't tell me this is not how it works? And I said, well, it worked,
Yeah.
I like this story because it kind of tells you, like, if you like coding, if you're good at that, if you know what you want, if you like are confident about it, it really doesn't matter, like, if you have a fancy degree or, I don't even know if she had the proper CV. So like it kind of shows that in many ways, like, tech is much more inclusive than a lot of other industries, despite of what some people might think.
That's a great story. Yeah, it used to be a period of time where you used to have to print your resumes and go around town handing them out.
Oh, maybe for you, Dan. Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a UK thing. I mean, I'm sure it isn't, but all I can speak for is the UK. We used to, when I was a teenager, I used to print them. But when I think back, that's strange because my resume would have had nothing on it. Like, I would like a job, I go to school, can I work here?
Yeah.
Just
finished again, like 16 years old, nothing on it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a great question, though, because this lack of, I don't know, I guess just like lack of knowledge in this space and just going in and asking is almost the exact opposite of imposter syndrome, which is a big problem for a lot of people in tech. So how in your experience do your students or alumni, graduates, overcome imposter syndrome? Because it's such a serious issue. People, especially new into tech, can I do this? How do people get past it?
Yeah, so this is actually something that we do pay a lot of attention to, me and my team, because I think too many times we saw like perfectly capable people with the right skills and, you know, the right application documents, and something was going wrong in the recruitment process. And it was imposter syndrome, you know, the way they were communicating and maybe appearing in an interview, like, stop them from actually landing that role. There was simply another person that didn't have imposter syndrome, and this what made the difference. So we started doing a lot of workshops around that, and also thinking and talking a lot about imposter syndrome in one-to-one coaching sessions we do have with our students. And one of the exercises that we do, which I find always very fun, is like, I ask everyone to close their eyes and I read different sentences that might be your thoughts if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, you know, so something like, I feel like a fraud, right? And the task is that they should raise their hand if this is what they're experiencing. And then I tell them, open your eyes. And turns out that every single one has their hand up, because this is something that everyone is literally experiencing. So what happens then, they realize, okay, so it's not that I have it, it's pretty much everyone has it, which makes it irrelevant, right? Because like, if everyone has those thoughts, and maybe they are not even true, right? So we do exercises like that during group workshops. I also try to like educate people what is it and why does it happen, right? So I would tell my coaches that, look, if people were changing their jobs every week, the world would be a terrible place. If we're like, okay, this week I'm an accountant and next week I'm a I don't know, footballer, right? Like, the fact that we have that fear of changing career, because we kind of think of career as our identity to some extent, is something that protects us from taking too much risk, which does make sense, okay? Like, in terms of your thoughts, but at the same time, you know, in that context, it's a little bit unnecessary. So once they understand where is it coming from, they see that other people do have it, it kind of just shifts their perspective quite a bit. Also, what I tell them is that, look, at the end of the day, like, you're feeling like you're faking it, that you're a fraud, that someone is about to discover that you are an imposter. But as long as you don't lie on your CV and they do end up hiring you, it's kind of on them, even if they made a mistake. Like, they're adults, they are professionals. So it wasn't your fault, was it? But you know, it's important that they feel good about what they have on their CV. So in our job seeker program, when I was designing it, I was making sure that we give the right balance of instruction of how to do it, but at the same time we give people freedom to do it their way, because it's very important for me that they like their CV, that they like their LinkedIn, and it's not copied from the template that I wrote, right? So I would give them prompts and like examples of how to do it, but at the end of the day, they have to do it with their own hands, and like, they have to think about it, because I feel like it's essential to feel like your application documents like truthfully represent you in your own voice, to not feel like a fraud. Like, if you basically copy it, you will have that bad feeling that maybe I'm putting out there something that is not true.
I never said I wouldn't crash the system. That's on you.
It's a bit of a don't play the player, play the game kind of vibe as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of out of time a little bit. But just to sort of to sign off with, is there one piece of key advice that you would like to instill on people who are listening, who are just starting their journey?
Don't do it alone. I'm saying it as a person who does like doing things alone, but I feel like in terms of like job search and breaking into new industry, you need people to help you acquire those skills, build your first project with, check your work, give you feedback, find a bug in your code, review your CV, maybe practice for an interview, tell you about that industry or let you know about that opportunity before others find out about it, right? So I would say like it is really unlikely that you will find a job in new industry fast without inviting people into that journey, and your chance of succeeding is proportional or even maybe exponentially related to how many people like you do it with. So I'm not saying everyone has to do a bootcamp. It's probably not the best solution for like 100% of people who want to switch careers, but find a community or find someone who did that before. Just don't do it alone, please, because it will be very like frustrating process if you do it this way.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Marta. And how can the listeners connect with you and hear more about LeWagon?
Yeah, so you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. My name is Marta Bas, so you can just search for that, and you can send me a message if you have any specific question to me or to what I said. But what I definitely recommend is going to our website and clicking on Events tab. We do run a lot of great events, workshops. You can hear from our alumni or maybe try out a little bit of coding or at least like get a sense of what it actually is. So definitely check out the events that we're running basically all the time. But I also encourage you to book a call with someone from our admissions team. It's not necessarily like sales call, like they are not going to try to necessarily like sell you anything. But it's a good opportunity to learn about, what LeWagon is and whether this is the right thing for you.